Hey Sprouts, during the months of June and July, we will not be having new content here on the Catholic Sprouts podcast. Instead, we will be revisiting some of my favorite weeks of content. And here is one of those weeks. Enjoy! You're listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith. Hey there, Sprouts. Today is Wednesday, February 13th, 2019. This week on the Catholic Sprouts podcast, we are talking about purity. We started talking about purity with the help of Our Lady of Lourdes and St. Bernadette. Yesterday, we talked about what purity is, remembering that beautiful, pristine baptismal gown that we all wore at our baptism. And today, we are going to talk about an important part of purity that affects you right now, and that is the topic of modesty. Now, perhaps modesty is something that you have talked about with your parents or at school, but we are going to just review all of these things because modesty is something that affects you whether you are a boy or a girl, and affects you whether you are a child or an adult. It is something we need to be mindful of and aware of every morning when we get dressed and every time we go to buy new clothes. So first of all, modesty is simply our way of keeping our body pure and protecting the gift of our body that God gave us. It is a reminder that God created us all beautifully and individually, and that there are certain parts of our body that are more holy, more sacred, and more private that we should guard and protect. We even say that we should veil them. Now, if you remember what a veil is simply a head covering that a woman wears, and we do that simply to protect or to shroud. And so any part of our body that we cover and protect, we know is more holy and more private. Now, when I was a little girl, I went to a camp with nuns, and they explained it to us this way. They said that our body was created as a secret, that God created our body as a secret, and that we respect God and we respect ourselves by keeping that secret. And so therefore, when we choose the clothes that we wear, we should choose them accordingly. We have an obligation to protect our bodies. And now you and your parents can go into details about what this actually means. But for girls and boys, it does mean that we need to protect our body and not put it on display for everyone to see. As you have probably experienced, if you even have a thought about being in public and not being properly dressed, that can make you feel ashamed and really uncomfortable. And that feeling is natural. That feeling is something that God has designed in us to feel, because we know that it is good to protect the secret of our body. Even though oftentimes in this world, we can be driving on the highway and see billboards where women and men are not protecting the secret of their body, we still know, and we can oftentimes look at those images and feel that same shame and uncomfortableness. And we are reminded that that is not what God intended. He intended each individual's body to be private, to be secret, and to be veiled. Now, the other side of this, which is something that you can think about more as you grow up, is that it's not only important that we protect our own bodies, it's also important that we cover to help other people. You remember that feeling that you feel when you might see a billboard along the highway with a woman or a man that is not fully covered. We don't want other people to feel uncomfortable when we come around. We don't want them to feel uncomfortable that we're not properly dressed. And so, Sprouts, here is my challenge for you today. I want you to take a moment to talk with your parents about what the expectations are for modesty in your family. What that means, what types of clothes are appropriate or not appropriate. And there can be some pretty clear rules on this. It's an important thing to simply have this conversation because the way we dress certainly can play into our own quest for modesty.
That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God intended you to be.
And quickly, one word about Lent. Lent is coming, and we at Catholic Sprouts have a brand new resource to offer you. This year, pray the Jesus tree with your family during Lent. It is similar to the Jesse tree, only it dives into all the events of Jesus' life, and there is a special devotion for each and every day of Lent. You can check it out and find out more about this really beautiful devotional at the website CatholicSprouts /Jesus-tree.